Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this edition of Nobody Likes Recruiters. On the show today, we're going to be talking about remote working, which is a controversial subject. Well, it's not a controversial subject. It's just a subject that's been done a lot, but we're going to try and put a different spin on it. So this is a podcast for you if you're looking to ace your recruitment, find the best talent out there. Lee and Steve have been doing recruitment for a long, long time, and they run Logic Resourcing, which is a boutique recruitment agency based in Stoke-on-Trent, but covers the entire country, that can help you with your recruitment needs. So yeah, we're going to talk about remote working. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And actually honing in a little bit of whether or not you as a business owner or as a recruiter should still be offering this, the ability for your workers to work from home. So yeah, let's start then with what is remote working first and foremost. Most people will know, but what do we mean by remote working? What do you think when you hear this term, Lee?
I think remote working, first of all, I understand that some roles it's just not possible to do remotely. Engineering, manufacturing, can't be done from your bedroom. There you go, Adam.
Keep going. The guy who runs the podcast.
And I think remote work, it's something that we're all aware of.
What comes in various forms, though, doesn't it? You get your fully remote, you get your kind of hybrid approach, or kind of tends to be kind of on-site.
Yeah. Something that's gone from massively, on the increase since COVID. I think that forced a lot of businesses' hands, didn't it?
Yeah.
With remote working, offers loads of benefits to candidates and companies.
Yeah.
If done right, doesn't it? Not going into too much detail, but there's the whole flexibility thing. There's the work-life balance, cost
savings on office space is a kind of huge thing, and actually being able to scale your business or find talent.
Yeah.
Where the challenge for talent's been an issue in a regional area, if you can open that up.
So how many businesses now are you working with that are still allowing their staff to work from home, would you say? What percentage is it?
I say probably couldn't give you the percentage, but I think it's started to shift back to more desire for people to be more office-based and kind of the roles that we tend to work.
Yeah.
I think certain sectors, like technology sectors, tend to be more open to remote working because I suppose they're used to kind of tools like Slack or the kind of online platforms, aren't they, where you can kind of create culture through those. But I think for businesses that are, I suppose, more service-based, people-based and stuff, there's definitely a desire for them to be more back kind of office.
And it's interesting as well because pretty much every business we work with that could went remote over COVID because they had to. Certain businesses, the moment the restrictions got lifted, all staff back in the office. Certain went to a hybrid form, certain fully remote.
Yeah.
And speaking to businesses, everyone's experience has been quite different. We've had some businesses who operate call centre sort of environments where productivity went through the roof when the staff was working from home. We spoke to other businesses, similar businesses, that productivity tanked. And again, employees...
I think it's leveled out, hasn't it now? I think actually the whole productivity argument is that people can be productive at home. That's not the argument, I don't think, anymore. I think the whole argument shifted from, could we do it? Could we be as efficient, as effective? Could we maintain sales levels, whatever it is? Well, the reality is you can. If it's done well, you can do it.
And that's the key thing. If you do it well, if you embrace it, fully embrace it. Some people at the start of COVID were like, we'll do this while we have to. Let's just ride it out. Let's not really put any investment in, or let's not see it as part of a long-term thing anyway. Certain things like some employers made their employees keep the webcam on all day whilst they're at home. So I could tell they never fully embraced remote work.
I used to have to write out what I did hour by hour, which was really tough. Wow. And in the end, I just used to I was working, but I wasn't working it's weird. I wouldn't having to do that in an office. I sent this email to this person.
Yeah.
But that may have actually took me half an hour, but I was always like, right, if that looks like it took me half an hour to write an email, that's going to look bad. But sometimes an email does take half an hour to write. You're not necessarily messing around.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a real example.
Presenteeism, isn't it? For some reason, somebody being sitting on a physical seat in a chair in your office, sometimes that presenteeism means more than sometimes I can see him, I can see they're working. Whereas in reality, it's bollocks. It's
we've always said, haven't we? Measure on output.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter too much about when you do what you can do, as long as you're, for us, we're keeping an eye on our guys not from a micromanagement point of view, but we know the guys. We make sure they're happy, don't we? At home, we catch up with them, once a day. They know what they want to achieve, what they're working towards, and we tend to measure them on that. So sometimes they might start work a little earlier, sometimes a little later, but we know what they've got to work towards on a kind of a weekly, monthly basis.
Yeah. It's interesting you say about the productivity, because it's not always evident to me that you're more productive in an office anyway.
No.
And I always thought this when it first came in. I remember gleeful articles written in the mainstream press reading at the time, and people said this is the end of traditional work and the office is dead and these types of things, which were obviously a nonsense, weren't they? So
well, in reality, I think you're right. I think you've probably got more wasted time within an office because of all the photocopier chats, brew room chats, the popping past the desk and all that other kind of stuff. All that is very disruptive and interruptive. And depending on what role you do, actually having focused time where you can get your head down and work, the home environment is the best place for it. You probably have more available working time sometimes at home than you do doing an office.
But on the flip side of that, some of those chats, back at Phones for You around the water cooler in the brew room.
Yeah.
I worked in recruitment. I could be chatting to somebody from the operations team about what projects they're working on.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. He could then go over to his computer, show me a few bits and bobs. We build those relationships.
Yeah.
You'd have that social interaction, which you just can't get from home.
So let's say then you're a business that has decided to do it.
Yeah.
And what you're proposing, Lee, is that they don't do it half-arsed. They embrace it as part of the one of the elements of working for their business. What other advice would you have to a business that's going to start allowing their staff to work from home?
I think the half-arsed thing, just on that though, is quite an important thing, because we get lots of people within the recruitment cycle. When we first talk to companies, we're open to hybrid, we're open to flexible days, we're open to this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for turnover within that first 3 months, or when we talk to people why you're looking to leave, well, I was told that it was hybrid, or I was told there's flexibility, some form of flexibility with my working hours, and it's just not true. Once they get in the role, it's like, well, that comes somewhere down the line when you've earned our trust and our relationship and stuff, and actually, it's just the wrong foundation and footing to be on from the off, where you can earn that when you're trusted, and actually it's seen as a privilege more than just an environment, but a role, and that's a bad thing straight from the office.
Yeah, I think going back to your question, I think if the business is going to fully embrace it, you've got to put some thought into it before. You've got to really understand what the job role is of that person, what their measurables are, what you're expecting their kind of outputs to be, and have a think about that before. It's not as simple as handing somebody a laptop, letting them crack on and work from home, and then expecting half an hour updates. It's understanding, it's taking the time to check into them, to making them feel valued, to understand they know what they should be working towards, to really set those guidelines and make it very clear from the offset, I think. So, it's not just a laptop, crack on.
But I think a lot of businesses that we kind of speak to now, and quite a lot that we're really embracing of remote working, particularly again in the kind of more creative roles, are really starting to want to push more kind of home work-based roles now. I can think along where they go. You just can't create that environment, that nature, that I suppose cohesion in a team. On Teams or online, you just can't do it. And again, we're starting to see candidates that have been remote, and now after 2 years found it quite isolating and kind of want that kind of interaction again.
There has been a shift. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting to note, isn't it? There's been this shift. So we've spoken about like embracing the culture, but in terms of of letting your staff work from home. But Steve, in terms of like what you would advise a business to do, those specifics of managing employees at home, have you got any advice for them on that? Because you guys do this as business owners already.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is about having those regular contact touch points, having those times where they come in. The biggest bit as well, if we talk to the team about this, making sure that they know that we're available, because when you're in an office, that simple call or some simple shout above the desk about advice or whatever it is becomes something that they don't do. Ultimately, they may say up to the end of the day, they may forget to ask you the question. So it's always making sure, I suppose, that they know as a manager that you're available to be able to kind of speak to and kind of talk.
Steve and I, if Steve's writing a job advert, he might shout over almost every time, Lee, what do you think about alternative job titles for this? Or I'm saying, Steve, have a quick read of this advert. Sometimes you think if somebody's working from home, you don't want to bother somebody with a Zoom call because, it's just different, isn't it? So,
It is.
I do think there's that learning element that you do lack as well. And I got a call. We were recruiting a grad. It was a grad finance role. CV came in. Candidate never worked a day in his life. Recently completed her finance degree. I spoke to him. I've started having a quick chat. Sounded really good on the phone. The candidate said, "Can I just stop you there? Is it a remote opportunity?" I said, "Well, no, it's hybrid, so 50-50, office and home." "Oh, no, that's not for me then." And I kind of said, "Well, it's only on your doorstep. Are you not willing to consider? It's a great company. We've placed people in the past who've, gone on and done really well. There's lots of progressional opportunities. I know the manager of the department. He's a great person to learn from. He'll help with your development." The candidate said, "No, sorry, fully remote." And for me, the amount that you could learn, especially going into your first role, from just being around others, from learning around your peers, from learning around the graduate that started last year so you could see them on their journey. I think to be so closed off to anything other than a remote opportunity is a bit short-sighted.
I think it's those leadership skills, isn't it? I think in the end, you may have to think about programs to develop the leadership skills if you're fully remote, because again, you kind of more remote people, you may be managing more on outputs, but outputs will tell them, well, you made so many calls today, closed so many sales, you've had so many customer interactions, whatever that case may be, but you have no idea of their capability outside that. How could they become a future leader of your business, And it's those kind of softer skill stuff that actually you would have to think about better mechanisms of assessing that and kind of performance down the line, isn't it?
So you're dead right. And we've got companies that embrace full remote working that do it really, really well. That just almost seems quite seamless with the remote working model, how they do it. We've got companies who offer hybrid working, but don't really fully embrace it. And then we've got companies that are almost quite arrogant in the fact that I will not offer, anybody who works for my business will not work from home.
So tell me a little bit about what they can expect then, because my understanding is that if you're in an industry where your staff can potentially work from home and you're not offering that, that is a disadvantage.
It is. And I think we were saying before, so I was having a chat with somebody last week just about the whole home working. And he said, "I'm not paying anybody to wash their underwear on my time." And I think he referred to him as lazy cab. I don't want to lazy cabbage patch workforce. And I was like, "Oh, wow." So, anybody who works for me will be office based. And
there's no right or wrong is the reality. I think
it's his prerogative. It's his company.
Yeah.
It's just the availability of talent, where I think with some flexibility, flexibility helps you to, I suppose, have a greater outreach at the moment to certain people, certain circumstances. Quite a few people at the moment seem to be considering some part-time based work, to fit around, schedules of, working parents and things. And there's lots of different variables at the moment.
Yeah, I think my objection to that is, on the one hand, it's fine, that's your business. You can't have your cake and eat it. You've got to understand that you're not going to be able to attract if the business is offering it. But also from a candidate's perspective, what offends me a little bit is this idea that anybody that wants to work from home is somehow lazy. Now, that's just blatantly wrong. Like, if you're going for a job, you want to work for that person, you want to do that job.
But what does that say about a company's culture?
Well, it's not a great reflection.
We lack people focus. If the person in charge has that opinion, does that mean they lack people focus? Does that mean they're not considerate? I mean, we aren't preachy. I think anybody should be able to run their business the way they want to run the business. I prefer to work. But if you want full pick from the best talent, you've got to be considerate of what the candidates want. Some candidates will want office-based work. Some candidates will want hybrid-based work, and some will want fully remote. If you want to have the best selection, if you want to pick from the best, you've got to embrace everything.
What we've had, if you're dead honest, we've had the same struggles at times with adapting it, although we've kind of always been, you can homework and, kind of been very off. It's like trying to, there's times when I was turning around and said to Lee, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel as, we were working closely together. You're really pushing and driving together. it felt more collaborative, more team orientated, and there's no doubt it 100% changes a little bit of that feeling, that buzz, that environment, that energy, that uplift, and even sometimes on the days when the guys are in, that then becomes more stuff to talk about on those days, and less on the you kind of people able to get their heads down because you're trying to fit more in on those days. So
but as long as productivity is still there, and the lives of our employees are better, then what other odds
it's a winner.
that they can still come in every day if they want to. Or quite often they come in, we ask twice a week in the office. Sometimes they come in 3 or 4 days, depending on workload. So as long as productivity is there, their lives are improved. They can get to do the bits and bobs they want. They're, working towards their outputs that we're happy with. Then that's kind of good for us. That's kind of our stance, really.
Okay. So to summarise then, I'm going to ask you a question each. Lee, I'll start with you first, and I'll move to Steve, and we'll just kind of bring everything together. So what advice would you have to businesses? Just try and wrap this up in 30 seconds. What advice would you have to businesses who are implementing a work from home strategy today?
If you're working from home, put some thought into it. It's not as simple as just handing a laptop and saying crack on. You still need to dedicate time to them. You still need to make time to them. You need to fully understand the outputs of what you're expecting from that person. And the one thing to remember as well is, if you advertise a role with hybrid or remote working, you're going to get more applications and a better choice. I know that's slightly answering, bringing in a different question as well, but you've just got to put some thought into it. That's my synopsis.
Okay. And Steve, what would you say to a business that is completely against working from home? Let's imagine a scenario where their employees could work from home, but they're completely against it. What would you say?
With them, and do you know what? I go, do you know what? It would be a bit more ideal if you had some form of flexibility. But do you know, it is what it is. I think there's still certain people that are interested in office-based working. There still will be, somebody who prefers to have that. I leave at 9, I go to work, I leave it at the door at 5 p.m. and I go to my home. You have that separation between office and home. So my always thing is, that as long as it's whatever's best for your business, if that is the best thing you believe for your business, then you're doing the right thing. Then it's even more probably important to create a strong culture when you're inside that business, create a culture that people want to come to, that they enjoy coming to work in an environment. And similarly, you'll probably still attract and retain talent, but you've got to accept if you have no flexibility whatsoever, it does 100% impact on how many people or the type of people you attract. If there's 2 like-for-like opportunities we're finding at the moment, and one offers some form of 1 day working from home too, it's desirable to people. It costs is less commute, less petrol money, and all the other kind of bits and stuff. So there's,
and it gives an indication of the company, and it gives an indication of the company culture as well.
You've got to have, if you're fully office based, create a brilliant, strong office culture, or a kind of work based culture, because it's dead important. That's what you're nailing your hat on. We want you in work because of X, Y, and Z. So just create that place that people want to be.
Hanging your hat on, not nailing it. If you nailed your hat to the wall, you'd ruin your hat, wouldn't you? I said nailing it.
You'd be.
Sorry. I didn't know. I have to get you back. You spent 90% of our relationship was you giving me sticks, so I just get you back every now and again. All right.
But nailing your hat, I just didn't want to refer.
What I will say though is the bad analogies, my Timberlands. The bad analogies aside, that was a really, really good episode, and you guys have just given, I think, the listeners and the viewers some really tangible stuff if they're running a business to how to approach this subject. Because it's still, even though we're well past the pandemic now and everyone's kind of used to it, I think it is still tricky, isn't it, for business owners and recruiters?
And then you work to that. That's ultimately the best thing to do, isn't it?
Got it. Well, if you enjoyed this episode of Nobody Likes Recruiters, remember to like, share, subscribe. Give us a comment, actually, underneath whichever method it is that you're listening or you're watching to this podcast, because we do appreciate that. And we'll see you next time on Nobody Likes Recruiters. Bye-bye.
Not only can recruitment be a rather frustrating process, it can also be pretty time consuming. But thankfully, the team at Logic Resourcing can take all that pain away from you. Lots of agencies say that they do recruitment differently. We've all heard it. But as you know from this podcast, both Lee and Steve at Logic genuinely mean it. Now, put it this way, 94%, yes, that's right, 94% of the candidates that they submit attend their interviews. And Logic have a 90% success rate on exclusive assignments. That's pretty impressive. So if you're looking to ace your recruitment, make your life easier, and find those diamond candidates, start by letting Logic take the stress out of all of this for you. Give us a call or email info@logicresourcing.com.